So I just wanted to add to that with Oakland Local, if that's okay. We published multiple types of community contributions, and we try to label and contextualize them. So things that are opinion pieces we mark as community voices. Things are being published by a representative of a nonprofit. It's tagged with their logo and their byline, and then reported stories are by our reporters. We're trying to make everyone adhere to the same guidelines in terms of agreeing to accuracy and thoroughness. But we've had a couple of problems that we've had to field, and they've mostly been around political reporting. We've had people who've published articles that were critical of candidates, and we in turn got flack back that we weren't being balanced. And I think our coverage was very balanced, but letting some of these community contributors vent on our site got some of the campaign managers upset, and we retreated from doing it. You know, I really encourage some of those people to start a blog. So I'm pretty vigilant now, even with the community voices, of making sure that we don't veer into anything that's campaign related, where we really would appear to be supporting advocacy. And yet we have a lot of very political writing on the site, people who are criticizing the police or criticizing city government, but that seems much easier to manage than this gray line with actual campaigns. So,
actual candidates?
Yeah, that's where we've really pulled back and learned from our first year in terms of what we're doing now.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, with Front Porch Forum, we get a lot of activity leading up to elections, a lot of neighbor-to-neighborhood comments about candidates and ballot issues. And we started out without any rules of engagement. I didn't want to have any rules. I wanted to keep it wide open and then develop rules as issues arose. And this was the first one. And it continues to always be a challenge every election season. And so we've developed a set of rules that are in our terms of use. And they're particular to the way our model works. But one of the bigger concerns was the sitting public official has special access to the neighborhood forums. So a city councilor may have access to 10 neighborhood forums, where a neighbor, and therefore a challenger, only has access to the one where he or she lives. And so we had to set up rules to even out the playing field there leading up to election the best we could. The other area, speaking about legal challenges, is sometimes folks use our site for business reviews. There was a case of a car fix-it shop. I think he had 3 or 4 bays and maybe 6 or 7 mechanics. And somebody came in and felt ripped off to the tune of a couple $1,000s. He gave an estimate. He says, "Oh, you got a severe problem, $2,000." Took it down the road to a different shop. Said, "No, there's no problem here." And so the person came home and posted that on the neighborhood forum that had 700 households out of the 800 houses around that place looking at it. And all of a sudden, dozens of similar stories emerge. And this guy's business, overnight cut in half. Anyway, so there was, some legal language came up pretty quickly, but, we were just a neutral forum for people to share opinions, and frankly, none of it appeared to be libelous. It was all just reporting a fact. Nothing was made up. But it's certainly not our intent to have any business fall on hard times. But in fact, I offered an olive branch to the local business person. I said, "Hey, I'm happy to give you space to address the community, and explain yourself." But he neglected to take that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in really quickly, too, about the libel thing and your liability as a publisher. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act prevents you from being liable for user content that's submitted. So that's pretty strong, and it's upheld many, many times recently. So, I mean, you have to act on it. You can't allow, libel and stuff to sit on your site. But if it's just put up there, you're not liable as a publisher. So that's really important.
Yeah, Lisa.
The Center for Citizen Media Law also has really great plain English state-by-state legal guides for media law. And if you haven't read them, you should. But it'll have more stuff like the stuff that he said, which, to my knowledge, is true, too.
Thank you. Can you tweet a link to that? Thank you. So the idea of social identity and how people define themselves in part by what they share and by the connections that they demonstrate having had. So one of my favorite little anecdotes is that NPR sees personal ads that say NPR listener seeking same. Because it's such a part, this is my dad and his wife who met each other and could have done it around the notion of NPR. Singles events from WNYC are humongous. I hear. I don't know if anybody's from there. I hear they're huge. So this idea of how being a part of your organization is cool. And I don't mean cool like hip. I mean like this is something, I am proud of this fact. And it's something that I would advertise as part of myself. And I hear a little bit of that in what Denise is saying. And a lot of it also in what Andre and Michael are saying in terms of this is part of who I am. So I just want to throw that idea out there and see if anybody's got it.
We made up Euro magnets for the back of people's cars with our FPF logo, and they went pretty quick. And we see them around town now.
Yeah. So what does that say about people that they're part of you? Huh. Yeah.
Deborah Smith from Jersey Bites. I know I'm a bit of a different animal than most of you, but we call our readers and our contributors fighters. And they all seem to really love it. My contributors all have Jersey Bites shirts that I bought for them, and we recently turned 4. So I had a birthday party for Jersey Bites, including a cake that said "Happy Birthday, Jersey Bites" with a big tomato on it. And I hired a photographer so we could have really nice pictures of the team together. And instead of just the classroom kind of sitting in rows and smiling, I had everyone grab food and eat it in crazy ways and just really have a lot of fun with it. And what amazed me after that party was how much they were thanking me for me allowing them to contribute to Jersey Bites.
Which turns it into a social experience.
Right, and they're not paid, they're all volunteers. But I get it all the time where people say, how do you get that gig? I'm like, you write for free.
Welcome.
So, I just try to make it really cool and really fun and something that people want to be a part of.
Huh. Any other panelists, any comment on the idea of social identity and how it's connected to media consumption or production?
Well, one thing that we did that I never thought would take off the way it has, or in various points, is we have a black T-shirt that has "It's nice to have you in Birmingham" written across the front of it. And it is based on a 1950s campaign that was done in the city by what was then the Young Men's Business Association or something like that. And
it sounds very 1950s.
Yeah, it sounds
it's nice
1950s.
to have you, golly.
But it is one of the weirdest. I know that this is one of the crazier moments. I know that for a long time, a lot of the blacks in Birmingham didn't like that campaign at all, from the 1950s and 60s. And so one thing that was very interesting was when folks found out that it was an African American who owns the site that's printing the T-shirts and getting it out there, it was very much suddenly it was an ownership issue where they bought into it. Another example is I was sitting here in our opening session yesterday, and suddenly I see a Facebook post, and it is from one of our more popular readers in the community who is wearing the shirt at a conference in Washington, D.C., and puts it up on his wall and says, "I am so thankful for getting this shirt." He'd actually won it at a competition a couple years ago, and he actually has a food blog where he's been writing about weight loss for the past 2 years. And he went ahead and purposely tagged me and said, "Thank you for giving me this shirt." And I thanked him back for wearing it and wanting to have it out there in the community. And our logo is on the back of the shirt for the website. And it's weird to see where the shirt pops up and what people are doing when they're wearing the shirt or when they're holding it up. Like Chris Brogan was wearing the shirt the other day and singing its praises because he was visiting Birmingham last year, and we gave him a T-shirt, and he loves the shirt. Every time he gets a chance to wear it, he puts it on. Or bands or comedians. It's just, and the fact that they do actually believe that it's nice to be in Birmingham. And it definitely is weird for a non-local. I am probably a really weird person in this scene. I am not a native. I am a native of the Bronx. who ended up in the Southeast by accident because of college. And so it's very much a case of, but it's a case of I love the city that I live in. I choose to be there. I want to make it a better place. And the people that are reading this site believe in it more than anything else in the world, so that if somebody goes out and says nothing's going to happen, they're some of the first ones on the first line of defense that go out and say, no, you're wrong. This is what's happening, and this is what's happening. And I heard it from here. And that sense of place and that sense of buy-in is something that is immeasurable, but it is something that means more than anything else that you can throw at me in terms of metrics or anything.
To sort of piggyback off that, and first to answer Joy's question, I think sharing is pretty important because, especially for something like the Rapidian, which is a general site, it can bring people to new topics, to engage with new topics. That's why one of the bureaus that Lori was referencing, an environmental bureau, is signing on to the Rapidian, is because they do have their stuff posted on their own blog, and it's actually of pretty high journalistic standards, but they're preaching to the choir in a sense. Like, people are self-selecting who go to the blog to consume the content, and they really want this content to get out to a wider group. So that's why they're partnering with us to do that. But in addition to sharing the content, I think people are really respectful of it because there's an additional richness that is there because they know that their friends, their neighbors, their networks, people who they don't know yet but will become community to them, are taking the time and effort because they really believe in something to actually contribute the content. One of the things that I wanted to piggyback off of what Andre said is he kind of hit upon something that I actually heard at the Online News Association conference last week, which I think several of you were there, and one of the keynote speakers was Ben He, who oversees the I Can Has Cheeseburger empire. And one of the things that he was talking about is how, we always have this idea of brand preservation, right? Like, we really want to preserve our own brand, make sure that it goes out the way that we want other people to read our story and identify with it. But really, like, if you open that up, people are more than happy to tell your story, was what he said to the whole crowd. He said, but the thing is, they're going to tell their story of you, their experience with you. And it really is a win-win situation because they're feeling ownership over it and talking about you, and you're getting more exposure, which I think is what Andre's example speaks to, is when you open things up and let other people share, there's all these additional layers that are there that you never thought about.
So one of the things that I think we cannot close without saying is that a lot of the duties we're talking about are not what we necessarily got in the business to do. Now that I'm back in a newsroom and I'm grappling with some of this myself, I last week organized a giveaway contest for Taylor Swift tickets. And at the end of the day, found myself reflecting on the journalism I didn't do while I was organizing the ticket giveaway. It's interesting that throwing parties with birthday cakes and taking funny pictures and hoping your t-shirt shows up on Facebook, this is part of what we do. And the piece I'm making with it is that if my goal is to increase audience so that when I have something important to say, there are people around who care enough to know it, I just don't have a marketing department. And so it's me, and my goal is my goal is the same as it ever was. We just can't do what we do without having that growing audience and building loyalty and community as part of it. So I think we're gonna have to end there. Thank you.